Ever since Pokemon first began, it's gone very far. Now we have a total of 718 Pokemon. There are some Pokemon that are known for being notoriously overrated, and some Pokemon that I personally don't feel get enough credibility. I know this can be considered an underrated Pokemon list, but the thing is, there are actually some instances where some people actually have good reasons for hating them. Now, I want you to keep this in mind. I am not trying to guilt trip you guys into making you stop hating these Pokemon. You're entitled to liking or not liking these Pokemon. I just personally don't hate these Pokemon as much as other people do. And I'm gonna say this right now. I don't really bring up strategies when it comes to Pokemon, but I will bring them up sometimes. That said, let's start. This entry could be considered a guilty pleasure, because while I don't hate it, there are multiple reasons that people have for hating it. Now, I will admit one thing, my cargo stats aren't very impressive. One of the big reasons that people hate it is because of its typing, Fire Rock. That's a pretty unique typing, but the reason people hate its typing is because it has two quadruple weaknesses, those being water and ground. I can understand that, but I don't hear anyone complaining about Golem for that, and I know I'm going to sound like I'm looking for defensive arguments with this, but if it bothers you that much, bring a grass Pokemon for backup. Overall, I can see why people hate this Pokemon so much, but I don't find it that bad. Emolga gets just as much hate as the other Pikachu clones, but I'm going to say that it's at least an improvement over the other Pikachu clones. It has better stats, and unlike the other Pikachu clones, who have the same typing of Mono Electric, this one's at least a twist on the whole Pikachu clone typing. This time it's an Electric Flying, which is admittedly not really a new typing since it's shared by two legendaries, but it's at least new for Pikachu clones. It does gain a weakness to Rock and Ice, but you can easily say that it also goes from being weak against ground to being unaffected by ground moves. It may not be the best electric Pokemon out there, but at least it's better than Pachirisu, not to mention it's cuter as well. You know what's ironic? Most fire starters are always chosen by the majority, but when Delphox was revealed, people started to hate it. A lot of people begged Game Freak not to make another fire fighting starter. They got their wish because Delphox became a fire psychic type instead of a fire fighting type, and people still complained. Why is this? Because of its design. While I think design is an underrated factor, I don't think its design is all that bad. I mean, yeah, I found it to be a little weird when I first saw it, but I'd say it kinda works for me. I wouldn't say its design is as cool as Pokemon like Arcanine and Infernape, but if you think Delphox is ugly, then you haven't seen anything yet. And I'd rather have a relatively weird design than for it to be another firefighting starter. Skuntank is a Pokemon that I really don't know why it gets a lot of hate other than its design. It's actually a pretty unique Pokemon. I mean, it's based off a skunk, which is pretty unique, and it also can learn moves like Flamethrower and Explosion through Level Up. It can also prove to be very useful in battle. Don't really have anything else to say other than the fact that I like it. Not that Explode gets a lot of hate, but it's on here because barely anyone remembers it exists. I mean, this Pokemon is one of my favorite normal types. I had so much fun using it in Sapphire. Also, just looking at this Pokemon really makes you think that you do not want to mess with it. Its concept is also really nice, with its starting stage being a normally quiet Pokemon and evolving into being probably the loudest Pokemon in the world. That's pretty clever. Also, its attack and special attack are both very balanced, giving it more possibilities with both special and physical attacks. And it has an amazing move pool, with access to moves such as Blizzard, Crunch, Earthquake, Fire Blast, Focus Blast, Hyper Voice, Outrage, Rock Slide, Shadow Ball, Surf, Synchronize, Thunder Fang, and even Solar Beam. That is why, if you want a really reliable normal type Pokemon in your playthrough of the Horn region, get yourself an Exploud. Yes, I admit it. I find Bibarel to be a good Pokemon. This Pokemon gets a lot of backlash, and I can kind of see why, but I still like it. Though there is one reason I find it to be very stupid of why people hate it. Because it's a dual normal type that's not part flying. Okay, let me ask this. How exactly is that a big deal? I mean, we finally have a dual normal type that isn't part flying or psychic. It's a very unique typing. And it's also a very unique Pokemon because up until Generation 6, it was the only HM Slavish Pokemon that had a dual type instead of having the same type as every other, which is always a mono-normal type. And it also has a very unique appearance being a beaver. Now, it doesn't really look much different than a beaver in real life, but at least it looks like they put more time and effort into making its design than a Pokeball with a face. Also, some complain about its appearance, which I actually find to be pretty funny, though it does lose points because its stats are the lowest of all HM Slavish Pokemon, but only by between 3 to 13. This is a Pokemon that I have some fun using. Now we're going to talk about a controversy. Jynx used to be colored black, but now it's purple. I don't mind that color change. What I do mind, on the other hand, is the reason why the color change happened. Because Jynx is apparently a human-shaped Pokemon, and it is colored black, that automatically means it's racist. Okay, let me just ask you this. How exactly is that racist? If anyone's racist here, it's the people complaining about it because they're upset about something resembling a black person. Also, the episode The Ice Cave was banned just because of Jynx, which is one of the dumbest reasons for banning an episode ever. Meet Aurorus. The reason this Pokemon gets a lot of hate is because it has 2 quadruple weaknesses, just like Magcargo, except this one's weak to fighting and steel. Well, most fighting and steel moves are physically based, so you can defend against physical attacks with Reflect, and I know that there might be some people who hate Aurorus for its typing and are still more patient than I am. Well, for those who are more patient than I am, you can chain breed it to teach it Barrier. And even if your opponents know Aura Sphere or Flash Cannon or those moves, then teach it Light Screen. Or, better yet, do what I said about Magcargo and switch out. Also, this Pokemon's main ability is Refrigerate, which is like Normalizer, except it's actually good. It makes all normal type attacks it uses become ice type attacks, so it can now hit ghost Pokemon, and it does decent damage to rock types. It may now only give half damage to ice and fire type Pokemon, but don't forget, it's also part rock, so you can own both fire Pokemon and ice Pokemon with ancient power. Also, fun fact, this Pokemon has the highest base HP out of all rock Pokemon, and most ice Pokemon can't be obtained unless you get your 5th badge. Well, look at Aurorus. You can obtain it as an Amora before you even get your 2nd badge. It's really sad that people always choose Tyrantrum over it. Okay, granted, I think Tyrantrum is just as awesome as Aurorus, but Aurorus deserves just as much attention as Tyrantrum. Like Jynx, Porygon has spawned a lot of controversy, and admittedly, it's a more understandable controversy than the Jynx controversy, but the backlash Porygon got is even less understandable than the backlash Jynx got. In case you don't know by now, the controversy was spawned by a notorious scene from the episode Electric Soldier Porygon, which I'm not going to show because I know some of my viewers probably get seizures from these kinds of scenes. In this scene, Team Rocket fired missiles at Porygon while Ash and his friends were flying on Porygon. Pikachu zapped the missiles, causing a bunch of seizure-inducing lights. Many Japanese kids were hospitalized and probably even killed from this. I can understand people complaining about this, but what I cannot forgive is that the complainers instantly blamed Porygon for this. It's like the people heard about this controversy, then they took one look at the word Porygon in the title and said, "Yep, that's our culprit," and thus, Porygon was banned from the anime forever. And because of that, we never got to see Porygon 2 or Porygon Z in the anime. Really? How stupid are these people? It wasn't Porygon's fault the flashing lights were triggered, and no, it wasn't Pikachu's fault either. Pikachu may have zapped the missiles, but what you people don't seem to know is that the missiles tend to explode on contact. If the missiles had hit Porygon, they would have exploded anyways, which would have triggered the lights. So, case closed, it wasn't Porygon or Pikachu's fault. It was Team Rocket's fault. They were the ones that should have been banned, not only for being so annoying in the later episodes, but for being the real reason why the seizures went off. Porygon and Pikachu are both innocent, but since Porygon received the most controversy, it's the more underrated one. Stunfisk. Okay, this may seem like a random choice, but I couldn't resist. The reason it's number 1 on my list is the fact that it's requested for almost every worst Pokemon list. I'll admit that it's very slow for an electric Pokemon. In fact, it does have the worst speed out of all electric types, but when it comes to being defensive, this Pokemon does a good job at it. Some hate it merely for its design, which I find to be pretty humorous. Some people hate it merely for its typing, ground and electric. Honestly, what's so bad about that typing? Well, aside from the fact that it's a fish that's weak against water, but other than that, how is it a big deal? I mean, I've wanted a ground electric Pokemon for a while. And some people hate its moveset. Some say it's not very versatile in terms of its move pool, but its move pool isn't that bad. Not only can this Pokemon learn water, ground, and electric attacks through level up, but it can also learn Sludge Wave through TM. Also, through level up, it is able to learn Bounce and Revenge. And you may not know this, but it has better stats than Skarmory. Overall, Stunfisk is not that bad of a Pokemon in my opinion. I mean, yeah, it's not a Pokemon I would recommend, but I still like it much better than everyone else does. And that is why it is number 1.